Now we've got the item 32, the membership of Local Government New Zealand, and I've just flicked through a couple of additional recommendations. So I'll move the staff recommendations with the 2 additional ones that are there. And
can I just signal then, Leanne? I've sent a foreshadowed motion. If you're moving, are you?
Yeah, I'm formally moving that.
Right.
But I haven't got a seconder yet. So,
right.
Mike, you're happy to second? Mike Davidson. Okay, so you've got a foreshadowed motion.
Joe's got it there.
Have you got it there? Oh. You don't even want me to go to the meeting tomorrow.
No. You're participating in this.
No, the working group is on tomorrow.
Are you participating in this item though?
Yeah, of course. But I've got a Three Waters LGNZ. Yeah. I've got a Three Waters governance group.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
You're on the national executive.
No, I've got a Three Waters governance group, which you've all accepted that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about... Well,
no, but if you're saying terminate its membership immediately... Yeah. I mean, that means I can't go to the meeting tomorrow.
That's not a big deal. We're saying...
That's not a big deal. Okay, thank you.
Well, no. I think we might need to get... I mean...
Yeah. No, I'm not conflicted on this. Well, it's ridiculous.
You're on the national executive.
No, I'm not. I attend their meetings. I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to answer questions about that. But no, I'm not conflicted on this paper.
Should we not get legal?
Any more than I was conflicted on the other one. I chose how to. I chose how I dealt with that one. This one's different. On that one, sorry, I was surprised. I hadn't seen your foreshadowed motion.
Right.
So I didn't know that it would be with immediate effect. So I just...
We can make it Saturday if it gets you to the meeting.
No. I mean, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, we can perhaps we could take that offline for a minute.
Well, just remove the with immediate effect. If that changes your support for it,
No, I'm not going to support it.
Oh, well, then leave it.
I'm not going to support it, but I'm going, and I mean, anyway. It's just it's just a little bit, how to do so. Okay. You wouldn't complete the financial year.
No.
Okay. No. All right. No, that makes it crystal clear. All right. So
because that's 6 months away. So
sorry.
That's still 6 months away.
Yes.
So, yeah,
that's right.
Would kind of defeat the purpose.
Well, the working group doesn't report until March. So anyway.
No, as a nominee for that.
I was nominated by LGNZ. Yeah. So, anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll deal with this. So, the motion that we have in front of us is that we maintain our membership. We engage with LGNZ to ensure that we assume a leadership position within LGNZ. We don't have one at the moment. I have been invited to join the National Council meetings that happened in May, but I'm not a member of the National Council. There's something seriously wrong with the LGNZ model of selecting National Council or electing National Council when New Zealand's second biggest city and the largest in the South Island isn't represented at the peak body level. Requests that I write to LGNZ expressing our concerns about the nature of the agreement they entered into with central government and our expectation that with the lessons learned they'll ensure this doesn't happen again, and request the Mayor to write to the Prime Minister to express concern about the implications of the heads of agreement which calls into question their commitment to partnership between central and local government. So they're the recommendations, and we have a foreshadowed motion should that be lost. So, questions for Helen or Dawn or me?
I have one.
Yes.
Yeah, just request entered into central government and our expectations that with the lessons learned they will ensure that this does. So we want evidence of that. So how will we know that they have taken those lessons on board? Sort of an action plan going forward to make sure it doesn't happen again. What can we sort of expand that a little bit to look for something that is tangible in terms of evidence that lessons have been learned, and this will be what will happen next time.
The decision set was the National Council, isn't it? And they didn't reach out to the rest of the membership, so
Yeah.
there's a significance, obviously.
Yeah.
That's a good way of describing it, actually, Pauline.
There is a yeah. So I mean, I'm quite happy that it refers to
Could put
the
through the
interest-
development of a significance policy at the end of that.
Yeah. And our expectation that with lessons learned, they were sure that this does not happen again. To be confirmed. And confirmation. So instead of our expectation and confirmation that with the lessons learned, they will ensure that this does not.
Cool. That's
happen
very
again.
good.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
You're good with that, Mike?
Yep.
Yep.
just on
It doesn't matter. I mean, in terms of the detail, we can
So
deal with that.
just to clarify on that point too. I mean, point 3. What other agreements would they enter into? It's a heads of agreement now.
Sorry,
Would they have another heads of agreement?
I doubt it.
So what's the point of it?
It's the confirmation of the lessons learned. It's the approach that they took in entering into the heads of agreement.
But if there's the point is, what's the point of the lessons learned if there's no other agreement that they're going to enter into?
No, but
The
we
heads of
don't-
Agreement's long standing.
So can I just? That was my concern, that that we got an email from them to say, "Whoops, sorry,"
Yeah.
but that was it.
Yeah.
Whereas I've said to Leanne that there needs to be more, and that's exactly what I've got. So in the future, if there were something, who knows? I never saw this coming 10 years
But the
ago
heads
or
of
5
agreement
years ago.
encompasses
Yeah,
everything.
but it could be on anything. But now they're going to say
But
they
that's
would
the
come
point.
back to their members.
It's covered everything.
Sorry, this is always going to be a challenging issue because we've got council were asked to go away and do this as a result of a notice of motion. They've come back with a straight bat and said our recommendation is that we maintain our membership of LGNZ. There is disagreement around the table. This is going to be a difficult issue to resolve, and we will get on and resolve it today. And so I'm going to take further questions for preferably for Helen and Dawn, and that was a clarification around what we would expect from LGNZ in terms of the lessons learned.
And dependent upon the questions and our answers, I may wish to say something at the end of the questions, Mayor, please, as well.
Yeah, okay. So, Sarah.
Thanks. Question for Dawn. You've detailed in the report potential extra costs involved in leaving LGNZ, and that we'd need at least 2 full-time staff members doing sort of policy work and those kind of things that LGNZ currently do. Have you looked at the other costs involved, such as, as a non-member we can access the training, but it's much more expensive, those kind of things, and what would be needed in that space?
I couldn't give you the specific detail of that, Sarah, at this time. There will be hidden costs that sit behind that if we withdraw from LGNZ. And in the report, we're really clear about where the activity of where we engage as a council. So I'm sure, Helen, if there's anything specific you could say to that, I'd be grateful. But there would be unintended costs, I'm sure. Yeah. But the fundamental is about the access piece to people like ministers, etc., which as a single council we would not have the same breadth of access. Whether that access results in tangible, significant changes is a different discussion, which is why I probably want to say something at the end of this questioning session.
Yeah. And while there are things that we do as elected members, and Solgum is there as well,
That's right.
there's also staff involvement currently in the policy areas and those kind of things with LGNZ, and attending things like Three Waters meetings and other bits and pieces. You know, how valuable is that to the organisation? I was talking about the staff part of it. Yeah, for those staff members that go.
So for I speak for staff members, can obviously speak for themselves. From the staffing perspective, actually, this is about, in a mature relationship, you have a strong sector body, and we need to evolve our sector body in New Zealand. But what you get from that is a relationship with all of your councils across your country. There's the learning and sharing that comes from that, whether that's for us, that is in the metro sector, it's in the policy development forums, it's at the chief exec level, it's our elections officer. All of those things are open to this council to be engaged with through its relationship as a member of LGNZ. That doesn't mean it's perfect, because I'm not saying that. But we get value and the sector gets value from us. And as we continue to improve as a local authority, we will be able to shape more in the future. I think we've been missing in action for quite a number of years, and we're now stepping into that space as a local authority far more actively.
Thanks.
Melanie had her hand up before, and then Sam and Jimmy.
So we had the deputation from Alexandra this morning, and I know that she's the rep on behalf of our council for the community boards on the community board executive committee, and so I presume that she wouldn't be able to be a part of that if we leave LGNZ. So that's one question, and then the other question is for the young elected members, are they, if we are not part of LGNZ as individuals, able to be part of the young elected members body? The other two questions. Is it no, yes, no?
I know the answer definitely for the first one, and in
No.
relation to Alexander, the answer to that is no. And although I haven't expressly asked the second question, I think the answer to that is no as well.
Thanks.
Sam?
Yeah, thanks. Probably just following on from Sarah's question about the additional resourcing, and Dawn, it might be one for you. Just in, and Helen, thank you for the report. It's actually, it's really down the middle, so I appreciate that. 8.1.4 talks about, 0.5 of a senior communication staff. I just wondered, for context, how many communication staff do we have now? In round, like, is it 40, 50?
Not communications is not about just.
In Di's team.
Well, Di's team is not just communications; it's the whole of the engagement team as well.
Yeah.
There's a whole raft of different things that they do.
So like there's probably, like you take design, marketing, engagement, media.
Yeah.
I would say 43.
Oh, 43.
But
Okay.
that's for the whole.
But that's the whole
Yeah.
thing.
No,
That's
43.
Not just
that's
communication
good to know.
staff. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Thanks.
Jimmy?
Thank you. I think paragraph 3 and 4 pretty good, but I'm not sure, especially paragraph 3, to express our concerns. Those concerns, this wording, whether it's possible to be replaced by our disappoint or not, particularly regarding to LGNZ. Disappoint. Yeah. Disappoint is stronger or not?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's literally semantics.
Yeah. We can put it any word you want.
If it's a bit more unhappy.
Thank
I
you.
don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yep. I'm happy with that. And disappointment. Our disappointment and our concern.
What about disgust?
Only this one. Disappoint. Oh, disappoint. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right.
Extreme disgust.
No.
All right. Are there any more questions?
Let's go.
Okay.
Do you mind if I make a
Oh,
perspective?
so the Chief Executive would like to make a statement.
So I appreciate there are differing views round our council table on this matter. And I've reflected, Helen and I, in the report, the catalyst that has driven this, which is Three Waters. But I'm not going to concentrate on that. I'm going to concentrate on what I believe we need in local government in terms of how we need to go forward and the role that I think a sector body needs to play and how we take our part in that, because that's why we've given the very objective view. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things that could be improved. But that perspective around the challenge that we are facing as a sector of the reform programme is significant. And undoubtedly, if council decides to remove from LGNZ, I absolutely respect that position. And we will do whatever we can in terms of the work as an individual council. But we also have strength in terms of being part of the wider local government family in terms of dealing with that long-term perspective. But it's important that Christchurch expresses its views in terms of how that should be improved. And I think we do that in the report as well. So recognising the differences that sit round this table, my only request of you is you think about the long term as well as the immediate and how we would deal with those matters. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. All right, well, I shall open it up for debate. I am very strongly of the view that we should maintain our membership of Local Government New Zealand. I do feel that the way Local Government New Zealand is constructed in terms of the election of its peak body leaves a lot to be desired, and that is something that we have expressed as a council over a number of years. The Christchurch City Council disengaged from a range of relationships, both with our neighbouring councils, with our regional council. There was no relationship to speak of with Mana Whenua when a group of us arrived back in 2013, and it was the same with LGNZ. I decided that my best time for investing my resources at the beginning of my mayoralty was to invest in those local relationships first. And so I didn't put myself forward for consideration for the National Council in my first term in office. I helped build a really strong working relationship with Mana Whenua and also with iwi. And I've also worked very hard on the relationship with the Greater Christchurch Partnership, which emerged from the Urban Development Strategy Implementation Committee. We've developed a very good working relationship with ECAN and our two neighbouring districts. In fact, I would say that it's never been better, and it can only grow from there. So it will go from strength to strength. So in my second term, I decided to put myself forward for the National Council of LGNZ through the metro sector, which was really the only one that was available to me at the time, and I was unsuccessful in being elected to the National Council, and then there was a change in leadership, and as a result I was elected to the position and served for a few months on LGNZ, only to have the same thing happen again after the 2019 election, as not to be successful in being elected to that office. We have raised it with LGNZ about the nature of the model for representation, and we have asked them to look at whether there should be automatic representation, as there is for Auckland, on their peak body, and that is something that the Local Government New Zealand as a whole has to address. I don't think that people completely understand the situation that LGNZ was put in relation to the heads of agreement. And that's why I've asked us to consider writing to the Prime Minister to express concern about what the implications of the Heads Agreement are, because they, in my view, call into mind the commitment to partnership between central and local government. It's almost as if there's a price tag associated with a partnership. There should be no requirement to have an agreement with LGNZ in order to have a partnership with central government. Central government and local government should be partners when they approach a whole range of issues. We have been completely sort of blindsided by the range and the weight and the significance of all of the policy issues that are falling on this term of office more than any other. So it's the Three Waters reforms, but it's also the RMA reforms. It's also, recently the civil defence ones, the future for local government, climate change. The list goes on and on and on. And I think that instead of walking away from our peak body, I think we should stay and we should build the strength of our peak body to support us as we go into the future, because this is not the only issue that this council and any other council is going to have to deal with. And as a result, I think that it's in our best interests to seek to change, to seek to support, and to seek to unite ourselves with the rest of local government and to see that as a way forward for the future. Tim.
Yeah, thank you. Look, when I started looking at this, I would have voted against staying. However, adding 3 and 4 I think is really important. And I say that because we're a large metro, but there are provincial and rural councils that also need support in numbers. And it did seem to be that LGNZ, once they did the Heads of Agreement without any discussion, was actually having a closer relationship with central government than its members. And that's what really put me off. And we got a letter of apology, which without 3 or 4 I would not have accepted. Because it seemed to me that when it came, it's kind of like, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, which is totally unacceptable for a body like this. So I'm keeping the faith and with 3 and 4 and thinking we're moving ahead, because with what's happening in the future, we need to be one team. But LGNZ needs, instead of being bullied by central government, to turn the tables on and come back to its members and say, hey, this is what's happening, this is the honest and what are we being told by central government, so let's push it back. So I will be supporting this, but if it happens again in the future, I will without question be walking. Thank you.
Thank you. Pauline.
Just briefly, totally endorse everything that Leanne has said and Tim just now. Nothing much to add except that it's better to stay in the tent and work with what we've got, strengthen what we've got. And I think Tim's right, the united voice is really important in this. I mean, no one's endorsing at all what happened, and I think that message is loud and clear. And Leanne's going to take that forward for us as well with another letter, and I know that they've received a few. We do want to see change. We do want to be more included. Our voice needs to be heard, but to leave would be a mistake in my view. So I'm going to support the recommendation in its entirety today.
Sam.
Yeah, thank you. This is quite frustrating, and I think I'm probably reflect a sentiment that sits out in the Christchurch community. I mean, the people of Christchurch are sick of words and want action. For us to sit around here and say everything will be all right again is simply not acceptable. I mean, I'm sorry, but writing to the Prime Minister, who won't even meet with Dan Gordon, we might as well not put the stamp on the envelope. It's just an absolute joke. The fact that LGNZ have let us down so badly this is a crunch time for us to show actually that we will not tolerate their nonsense. For them to say we can't even sit on their national council, and for them to have not done that for years, just shows how much they disrespect us. So I think the people of Christchurch deserve far better than, in fact, what we've been talking about so far today. They want action and not words. And I think, to be frank, people won't forget this at the next election. People need to stand up and represent the people of Christchurch, not side with a lobby group in Wellington who, quite frankly, have not been doing their job. So I'm just astounded that anyone would think we should stay in the tent for this. They have been unacceptable in their approach, they continue to be, and to simply write a letter saying they got it wrong has delivered no tangible outcome on how they will correct it. So let's actually act on this and not just talk about how everything will be okay. These assets are going if we don't do something, and LGNZ have been a main facilitator in doing this. So I'm just astounded that people think that writing letters will resolve this. Like I say, let's not even put the stamp on it. It's just beyond a joke.
Melanie, did you?
Yeah. I was going to say that there's members in this chamber wanting to break up the family of councils. And as we all know, long-term relationships require commitment and acceptance of the ups and downs. LGNZ has a difficult role to play and needs to maintain a relationship with central government on behalf of local councils as a grouping. This is not an easy job, representing a grouping with different needs, different opinions and different communities. I think it's not dissimilar to the head of a family trying to get everyone to agree or overcome their grievances on Christmas Day. Let's not forget LGNZ's been behind the development of a localism framework. Straight off their website, I read today, New Zealand is one of the most centralised countries in the developed world, with decision-making power highly concentrated at a central government level. In seeking to change this, one of the major hurdles is to present a credible alternative framework, not merely a high-level strawman argument. And I'll remind people here that when LGNZ put together these frameworks, that they need the government to be behind them. You can't expect them to do it alone. With this in mind, in my opinion, leaving the family when we feel they haven't listened to us or looked after us or done something we don't agree with, that doesn't solve anything. There's strength in numbers, and it's better to work together in this time of great change for local government in New Zealand. Now is not the time to turn our backs on our fellow councils and the organisation that represents us all. We succeed together, a tū tangata.
Celeste.
I've heard a lot about sending a message to local government, and I get it. But everything in life is a trade-off. So on balance, what are we getting back for sending a message? As we've heard, local government, NZ, does useful work in advocacy, policy development and education, provides access to ministers and senior officials. In fact, it's the only collaborative body we have to lobby directly to central government. So what is the trade-off? We lose a seat at the table, we lose access. We may not agree on everything, but, that's democracy, which, some of us are saying that we represent. Disagreeing and negotiating a way forward is fine, but we're more likely to be heard when we've got a seat at the table, not shouting from outside the tent. We are currently. As those that know the value of joining a club such as the Canterbury Club, belonging to a club is not just having access to the club. It's about having access to other people that care about shared things and working behind the scenes. That's called influence. If we leave, we lose our ability to influence other significant decisions. Like it or not, central government is embarking on a wide range of reforms. We know what these are, and they're significant. If we leave at this critical point, we really need to consider what the alternatives will be. This is a classic example of cutting off one's nose to spite one's face. We may feel like we're winning, but what we're actually doing is losing our ability to truly leverage our position as the second largest council to impact the government's wider reform agenda, to access officials and to advocate for the best interests of our city. It is all risk with little reward.
Thank you. Phil.
It's interesting times. Don't forget, if we leave, LGNZ have stuffed up the heads of agreement. Will they do it again? Probably not, but you never know. Right, this sends a message that you don't upset your customers. Like, we can go away, we can rejoin at any time. Now, look back at what the massive workload and stress they created for our staff running around doing all that stuff for Three Waters when maybe, if they hadn't signed the heads of agreement, we wouldn't be in trouble, at the trouble we're in at the moment. And it surprises me that some councillors here were not at all happy to give, or were struggling with giving 20 grand to Dan to fight the shambles that LGNZ got us into, but were more than happy to keep playing the 135 grand to them. And and just keep throwing it away. So we could use that 135 grand to give to Dan to give him more power. So that's me. Thanks.
Jimmy.
I'm particularly concerned because this morning we heard Alex, the Community Board chair, she was in those Community Board executive team. She mentioned that if we are aware from this LGNZ, whether our voice can be continued to be heard. This is my particular concern. If we look for the past several years, at least my view, if we review this one, we should consider advantage, disadvantage. We cannot just focus on this negative one and magnify all. LGNZ is nothing benefit for us. But at least my view, through the LGNZ, give us an opportunity to build out a good relationship and networking with the nationwide 76 councils, or with the whole South Island 21 councils. If we are aware from this the agency as a member, probably we lost. But Phil, you mentioned earlier, it's anytime we can join, but I doubt whether we can join because they will check, assess all the record, why we leave from there, but why you like to join again. Even if we join again, I doubt whether we have opportunity. For instance, our mayor, deputy mayor, future mayor, etc. They are possible because we are second largest the city. It's highly possible to be their national council. Then our voice can be magnified. Even now, my understanding, their national council subcommittee, like our CE in this subcommittee, particularly regarding to the future for local government. This one we have the voice, but they still have some other issue. The RMA issue, the national parties, the statement, the urban development, particularly for the housing issue or for those climate change issue, they are all very crucial issue. If we are not this one, how come, we can express our concern? Particularly in here, the paragraph 3 and 4, we highlight, one is regarding to LGNZ, because while you just, to sign this, the agreement with the central government, you ignore our voice. But we feel our stronger express our concern, disappointed, then this we can do. Also, Mayor, on behalf of the council or the people, we write the Prime Minister's government one. I think that's proper channel. So, generally speaking, I still, thought we stay in the LGNZ much better than we are aware from LGNZ. It's my view.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks. What kind of gives me hope with this is that we're not saying anything hugely different. We're just looking at saying it in a different way. And my view firmly is that you need to listen to your customers. And if you want to see a business change the way they operate very quickly, when the customers vote with their feet and stop buying their product, they take notice. So you've got 61 out of the 67 councils who literally pay this entity, this organisation, LGNZ, to represent and advocate on behalf of their interests. Now, they're just simply not doing that. When they would go out, LGNZ, and sign up to a heads of agreement, which essentially abdicates their responsibility of acting in the interests of their members, their paying members, and then subsequently those paying councils' residents, I just find that deplorable. So I don't see really any value in conferences, pens and compendiums with LGNZ. The value is when we need them most to stand up and advocate on behalf of their members and those councils' residents. And that is simply what they're not doing. So like I said at the beginning, if you want to watch a business change their tune, watch what they do when the customers vote with their feet and stop buying their product. So my honest view with this is I think that it is really naive to think that you're going to get what you want by doing some cajoling in a tent, so to speak. If you want to see a positive response, vote with your feet and leave and make sure that they get the message. As Phil said, and I completely agree with him, this isn't a see you later forever. It's an ultimatum. get your act together, do what we pay to do, and actually show your value when we need you most. And if you can do that, we're on board. But if you can't, then see you later. And I tell you what, if we left and any handful of any of those, just a couple of those 60 other councils that feel exactly the same way as we do, if they did the same, just watch LGNZ start acting the way that we need them to. So what this is really a conversation about is two different approaches: the cajoling in the tent to get the outcome, or actually vote with your feet and use the leverage. And I maybe I'm just cynical, but I think that the latter is the only way that we're going to get them to take note, because we're only going to get one shot at this, and I think we should do it properly and not take any chances on it.
Got Andrew, Jake and Sarah.
Thank you. This morning I talked about Christchurch having influence. I talked about Christchurch showing leadership, being in the tent, not outside of it, using all resources to get the best outcomes for our communities, using our ability to influence, to persuade, to contribute, to be part of decision making, to get the very best outcomes for our city's residents. Now, I've attended LGNZ Metro sector meetings for the whole of this and the last council term, and as a result of doing that, I've built relationships, I've had face-to-face discussions, along with opportunities to influence and problem solve. I've met with ministers of this and the previous government, including Grant Robertson, David Parker, Chris Farfoyn, and Mahuta, Eugenie Sage, Phil Twyford, James Shaw, and others. Their meetings I wouldn't have got otherwise. We've got significant feedback and we've had significant input into a number of developing policies as a result of the time that I've spent at those meetings. And we've had the ability to collaborate with other metro councils and with LGNZ and to use their resources to our advantage. I've attended Zone 5 and 6 meetings where the content has been really useful and the relationship building with other councils in the South Island has probably been even more useful than that. I'm disappointed at the position that LGNZ took on Three Waters, and I agree that that needs to be recognised, understood and reacted to, and we have already reacted. I'm also very clear that as New Zealand's second largest city, we need to be more involved in LGNZ than we are. We need to be at the National Council table. I was involved in some of the discussions that at least got us into the room for those National Council meetings. It's only one step further before we get a seat at the table with voting rights, and I'm sure that we can do that in the very near future. But if we believe Christchurch should be a leader in the local government sector, we need to step up, not step out. If we believe we want to be in a position to shape policy, we need to be in the discussions, not out of them. If we want to be at the centre of discussions on planning reform and local government reform, we need to be in the centre, not at the periphery. And if we believe that reform of local government New Zealand, LGNZ, is needed, we need to be driving that reform from within the room, not storming out of the room and slamming the door behind us. Yes, we could leave and rejoin. Not too many people get a divorce and then marry the same person they've divorced again. And I'm sure on the odd occasion that that does happen. It wouldn't be an easy ride, and it's definitely not an exemplar of how to conduct a relationship. Yeah. So I've long said that the City Council, that Christchurch, needs to take its leadership role as the capital of the South Island and as New Zealand's second largest city, and it needs to take that leadership role seriously. In order to do that, we need to be engaged, we need to show leadership, and in order to do that, we need to be in the room and at the table. So in my view, leaving LGNZ would be a huge mistake. And I do not support leaving LGNZ. I think it would be absolutely the wrong thing to do. I support the very sensible resolutions in front of us.
Calling time. Jake.
Look, we're not leaving LGNZ. It left us. This is the biggest change. This is the biggest change to local government in a generation, and LGNZ has not been a silent voice. They've been counterproductive on what is the largest issue we'll face this entire term, and most of us will face in our entire careers. Who knows where we would have been if LGNZ offered the pushback they should have right from the start. They clearly see their roles as managers of, not representatives of, local government. So as the second largest city in the country, it's behoven upon us to show real leadership by ending our membership of LGNZ. Now, it's ironic, we've had an MOU signed today which does the exact thing LGNZ should be doing right now. Now, is it right we do this on behalf of our ratepayers? Yes, but is it right the community pay twice? One bill to a group actually doing what LGNZ should be doing, and another to LGNZ. Why? Just because it's always been that way. We always pay that bill and we never question value. I say to the people of Christchurch will be no worse off by no longer being a part of LGNZ. In fact, I think there's a real opportunity to be had. We can offer bespoke training to elected members. An opportunity exists to strengthen our relationship with central government by providing an unfettered Christchurch voice. God only knows public transport could stand to benefit from that. By putting our values into action today, we could improve our relationship with other councils and again, truly play that leadership role. Put simply, we can't see ourselves as a charity with LGNZ as a beneficiary, because it's the people of Christchurch that are our sole dependent. Of course, we can always rejoin at a later date, and obviously once LGNZ cleans up its act, but that doesn't mean, but what does it mean when we say we want change and none is forthcoming? What does it say if we capitulate? It says we talk tough but have no follow through. We have no moral fortitude. As Grace would always say, an apology is one thing, but actually changing your behaviour is what's required. So let's not be afraid, just to continue in the tradition of relationship analogies, so let's not be afraid to try something new, which is sometimes what I say back, at least for a time, and see if we get some different results, because we all know the status quo isn't working.
Sarah.
Kia ora. I'd like to acknowledge the frustrations of my colleagues over the heads of agreement, and I feel them too. However, the Three Waters issue is only a small part of the work that our professional body do, and I'd hate us to miss out on the rest. The LGNZ issue is not us versus them. LGNZ is not a lobby group, and we are not its customers. It is made up of councils, and the governance are all elected members, representatives of councils across the country. They have done a lot of good stuff for us over the years, including supporting our lobbying of government on nitrate contamination in our source water, which would only come to government attention with that, and other remits. But this time they've stuffed up and didn't check in with the wider membership ahead of signing the heads of agreement, and they've apologised. Those who turned up to the Zone 5-6 local government meeting heard Mayor Sam Broughton speak at the conference and would have heard it. It was clear and it was sincere. And I agree with Alex's deputation earlier. It is hard to complain about what LGNZ do when we don't participate enough and show leadership in that space. The training I've had through the various workshops and webinars has been incredibly helpful in my development as a councillor and when I was community board chair, whether it's on the RMA or pecuniary interests or transport issues. Alex's points around training for current and future members, not just councillors but community boards too. The work to support young elected members is crucial, and leaving LGNZ leaves them in the lurch. I've also been in communication in recent months with LGNZ over the rise in online harassment and the physical safety of elected members, and they have started work on this, trying to find a way to support elected members and get change. Many of my male colleagues will not see the need for this, but my female colleagues will. I am a member of LGNZ, just like I am a member of this council. I participate in as much as I can on behalf of residents and try and influence the decision making. I don't always agree with the outcome and decisions around the table, but when that happens, I don't throw my toys out of the cot and threaten to resign. LGNZ are our professional body. They are the closest thing we have to a union and work in a similar way to unions I've been a part of in the past. Unions exist because there is strength in numbers, and we lose leverage and we will get nowhere alone. I have heard today that leaving LGNZ is action, but it's the opposite, and colleagues have reinforced that. It's sending a message. It's simply words. It's also saying that we can't be bothered with our colleagues. We can't be bothered with action, actually working to improve LGNZ. And what's naive is thinking that the government will take us seriously alone. And while customers can talk with their feet, businesses always prefer constructive feedback first and a chance to improve over losing them. And that's just what we're proposing here. In keeping with the business metaphor, stopping buying pies at the bakery just because you had a bad experience with a sausage roll seems a little over the top. Leaving LGNZ means no mayor working with the metro sector to lobby government or attending National Council meetings, no Christchurch representation on the Three Waters group to work through alternative options for government. We'd be out of sight, out of mind, and out of relevance on the national agenda.
Thank you very much. Anne, and then Aaron.
Aaron next. Do Aaron.
Sorry.
So, we are a small country. We're half the size of London, and we face enormous challenges. Three Waters is one of them. RMA reforms, future of local government, climate adaptation. This is a time to build networks, to equip people and to better serve their communities and to strengthen democracy and to collaborate. So the only thing that we would be achieving through leaving LGNZ would be making some sort of, or taking action, as colleagues have asked for. The action of stomping out of the room isn't going to achieve anything in the end. When you think about conflict resolution, and this is a relationship, you think about some very important skills are things like affiliate, not alienate, engage instead of avoid, own the problem instead of blaming. It's not perfect. We're not perfect. Practice self-restraint, build trust, not distrust. Don't storm off and stand with your arms folded in the corner. Communicate and talk. We have everything to lose here and a lot to gain by working on this and making it better. We need to be in this in LGNZ for the sake of positive things for our city and our country. So totally supportive of maintaining the membership of local government, New Zealand, in local government.
Thank you. Aaron.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting debate this afternoon as people talk about families and storming out of the room and so on and so forth, and relationships and businesses and things. LGNZ, we are LGNZ, are a representative body of the councils. What's happening to councils in New Zealand at the moment is, for me, was unfathomable. I never thought I would live in a country where the government would steal water off councils and the centralisation of so many other things. So the change that our country is currently going through is almost unbelievable. But while we've got a global pandemic on, I suppose the blinkers are on and people are looking often in the wrong direction. By pulling out of this today, it does send a clear message, like some members have pointed out. You could stay in the tent and keep cajoling and make up and become friends again, so on and so forth. But I will point out that sometimes walking out of the tent does work. Does anyone here actually remember South Africa? The All Blacks eventually walked out of the tent. Every other sports team in the world walked out of the tent. Coming up in the new year, there will be the Winter Olympics in China. And there's a tennis player who's made accusations against senior leadership and, I'll probably get shut down for this, has made accusations against senior leadership, and countries are now, because that won't be, is not being dealt with appropriately, countries are pulling out of going to the Winter Olympics next year in China, all the executives, because it sends a message. Does it send the right message? No, because they're politicians. But once the athletes start walking, then China will listen, just like South Africa listened. Just like people listen when you walk out of the tent, like your businesses listen when the customers walk away because they got a crappy sausage roll, like Sarah talked about, they will move to another shop. I got a terrible pie the other day across the road. I'm not going back to get another terrible pie. You make decisions based on experiences, and the experience we've had as a council and of nearly all the councils in this country basically equates to a terrible pie. So let's draw a line in the sand. Don't, we can pull out and then renegotiate next year and maybe rejoin at some point. But by leaving, and the second largest city in this country leaving, does send a very, very clear message. It's worked before, and I believe it'll work again. Staying and talking about it is like an abusive relationship. I don't think you can really fix it.
Okay, right. Well, I'll just... Oh,
Sorry. Yanni and then
Yanni, then Mike. Yanni?
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, look, I appreciate getting this advice back. I think for me, just to reflect, that people have said, well, we get so much advantage from being in the tent. When I reflect on what's happened in Christchurch and Canterbury over the last decade and slightly longer, like I look at the loss of a democratically elected ECAN and the erosion of the environmental protection around water, and I question where was local government New Zealand in saving us from that, in my view, catastrophe. To lose a democratically elected regional council that wanted to protect water and our environment. Where were they? Did it help? Did it save us in terms of democracy? No, it didn't. What was the advantage when we went through the most draconian use of legislation following our earthquakes to do things to our city that were unparalleled in the history of New Zealand, top down to us rather than with us? Did it help us in terms of being involved in local government New Zealand? Were they visible around questioning the use of that extraordinary powers by government? No, I don't think it did. It wasn't very obvious to see at all. And the reality is that over the years that we've been involved, people have talked about access to training. The cost of training from local government New Zealand is absolutely prohibitive to most small community boards in this country. They cannot afford the high fees that are charged to get access to training. And what you see in New Zealand, which I think is really interesting, is that we just, for a country our size, we seem to be just constantly having a multiplicity of structures that all fund the same consultants to provide advice on the same thing through 3 different organisations, right? We've got Solgym, we've got Local Government New Zealand, we've got our own council, all commissioning advice. If you take the Three Waters reform, look at how much money and time and resource this council put in to understanding that complex issue in terms of going to central government. I can't see from the Three Waters process what benefit we got from being involved with Local Government New Zealand. The only thing I can see is that Local Government New Zealand were used as the reason why our community shouldn't be consulted on the reforms. The headline in the press, wrong minister, communities weren't consulted over Three Waters. And for those of us that listened to Radio New Zealand interviews with the minister, it was made very clear that she felt, as I understand it, that because Local Government New Zealand had indicated that they were involved in the process, that this somehow meant that we'd had a say. And we clearly hadn't. I think it's absolutely fundamentally wrong to have signed that heads of agreement without any proper process. We've repeatedly passed remits to LGNZ, which I don't think have made any difference at all. And I think, we should send a clear message, particularly around the significance of losing the potential to lose our Three Waters infrastructure, that it is unacceptable. So I won't support us remaining in it. I agree with the comment that Aaron has said that we can always review it.
I don't need assistance because time is up. Thank you.
You need a bell.
Andrew, I've actually got one. I'll just use it from now on.
Need a bigger bell.
It's me, actually, not Andrew.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. Actually, I'm pretty sure LGNZ has already received the message loud and clear. And I've heard leadership mentioned a bit today, and I did read, I think the other day, one councillor hoping would show brave leadership and leave LGNZ. Bold leadership, thank you. I'll change my wording then. Bold leadership is not throwing our toys out of the cot and leaving LGNZ, which actually won't achieve anything. Bold leadership is making the right decision to remain a member of LGNZ under the political pressure from a small number of populist and vocal councillors, who I assume will vent their views on social media next. I would be surprised if there was anyone around this room that was actually happy with the performance of LGNZ on this one issue. But leaving LGNZ because we're unhappy on one aspect is really short-sighted. That's not how you create change, and that is not good leadership. We're heading into local government reform. Why would we not want to stay connected with LGNZ, who some see as our union? There is a reason that only one council, a small council, has left LGNZ. That is because the other councils actually see the value in being a member.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No one else? Look, I'll just wind up the debate and to thank you all for participating in the debate in the way that you have. And as I said, there were going to be strong views expressed around the table. We don't all agree with each other on this particular matter. I just wanted to pick up on one of the points that came up really this morning when both Dan Gordon and Gary Moore presented this morning, and they presented very passionately and vehemently about having an alternative voice, an alternative way of addressing all of the issues. Both of them said we should not leave LGNZ. And that's because both of them actually understand that local government New Zealand isn't the president, it isn't the chief executive, it isn't even the National Council. It's made up of the individual councils. And the question that is around the table today is a question of judgment exercised in a very high pressure environment, down to the wire. And you heard the timing this morning of the decision making in relation to one particular matter that was included in the heads of agreement, and that related to the mandation of water supplies. I think the issue that we haven't got our head around as a council is the role that central government played in that. It takes two to tango, two people to enter into an agreement. And that seems to me to have been a requirement of entering into the agreement for a commitment to a partnership that should be a given. That's what I see as good faith, and I want to challenge that with the government, and I want to do that with the backing of this council. The second thing is that I do want to engage with local government New Zealand to ensure that Christchurch does assume its leadership position within LGNZ. I have raised it with them, the Deputy Mayor's raised it through Metro, others have raised it at the conferences that we've been to. We haven't yet had a vote on it, and I think it's going to be important that we get that from you today. So I do want the government to know that this has been the wrong approach. I do want us to stay within local government, though, so that we can effect real change. So I will ask for a division to be put. Thank you.
And to be clear, you're putting the notice of motion.
Yes. No, I'm
or
putting,
you're putting the foreshadowed motion.
I'm putting the motion in front of us.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right.
Can you just put one separately?
Sorry?
Can you just put one separately?
No, because there's an official or foreshadowed motion.
So.
Oh, you're saying that. Okay. Well, I can put the.
We've sort of been speaking to whether we're in or we're out.
No, that doesn't. No.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, running to the Prime Minister.
Sorry. I don't. Hang on. If I'm going to put one separately, does it make any difference? Because the rest follows on from remaining. So I'm just going to put the.
Well, you could put the foreshadowed first, would be.
No, I can't. So.
Well, wouldn't it make sense to put Sam and Jake's?
No, look. Could you please assist?
Assisting.
You've asked for number 1 to go separately from 2, 3, and 4. All right. So I will put 2, 3, and 4. Is that right?
Need to do number 1 first.
Okay, so do put 1 first. Okay, all right. So can you take a division on 1? Okay, thank you.
So, and Jake and Sam's notice of motion is a
Which
foreshadowed
was
motion
dealt
to
with
this?
by, no.
I'm just wanting to understand the process of how
There's
what
a
happens.
foreshadowed motion. If this is lost, we will deal with the foreshadowed motion.
Cool. Okay, that's good.
The notice of motion was to ask for the paper, which is what we got today. So. Yes, I know, because the recommendation from council was to maintain the membership. Okay, so can we now put the Resolution 1. Thank you.
Councillor Galloway?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson? Deputy Mayor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McClellan?
No.
Councillor Major?
Nope.
Councillor Goss?
No.
Councillor McDonald?
No.
Councillor Kewen?
No.
Councillor Cotter?
Yes.
Councillor Davidson?
Aye.
Councillor Scandrich?
Yes.
Councillor Chu?
No.
Councillor Coker?
Yes.
Councillor Templeton?
Aye.
Councillor Donovan?
Yes.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
The Mayor?
Yes.
It's 10 votes for and 7 votes against.
Thank you. And now I'll put items 2, 3 and 4. Do you want that also done by...
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so can you do a roll call on the 2, 3 and 4 as well?
Two, 3 and 4. Councillor Galloway?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McClellan?
No.
Councillor Major? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
That was a no.
No.
Councillor Goff?
Yes.
Councillor McDonald?
No.
Councillor Kewen?
Yes.
Councillor Cotter?
Yes.
Councillor Davidson?
Yes.
Councillor Scandrich?
Yes.
Councillor Chu? Councillor Coker?
Yes.
Councillor Templeton?
Aye.
Councillor Donovan? Councillor Chen?
Yes.
The Mayor?
Yes.
It's 13 votes for, 3 votes against and 1 abstention.
Thank you. The resolution is carried. I'm actually going to suggest that we just take a 10-minute break. So if you could be back here at 4:15.